Good evening and welcome to your City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, October 17, 2017, and it is 7 p.m. Regular meetings are held on the first and third Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m. in the council chambers at City Hall. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll go from left to right today. Councilmember Susowitz?
Here.
Councilmember Davies?
Present.
Councilmember Jennings?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Genoway?
Present.
And Mayor Minigar.
Present.
Thank you, we have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, I would like to ask Chaplain Sharon Ginton of Orange County Sheriff's Department to come forward for the invocation, and then we will have Boy Scout Troop 872 to come forward to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Before we begin, may we take a moment of silence for the many who lost their property and lives in the recent hurricanes, earthquakes, and fires, and also to honor those who lost their lives in Las Vegas. Dear Heavenly Father, we are so thankful to be here today for the beautiful sunset, for all of the things that we see and that we don't see. I humbly come before you to ask you for your hand of blessing and guidance for tonight's agenda so that it is full of wisdom, productivity, and respect for one another. Please offer discernment of what would be pleasing to you and what would benefit those who live and work within the city of Laguna Niguel today and for future generations. It is in your glorious name I pray. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing. Boy Scout Troop 872, Color Guard advance. Please place your right hand over your heart. Those in uniform and veterans salute. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to our nation's flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2. Audience, you may be seated.
Thank you. At this juncture, I wanted to call up the troop leaders to join us here. And then I would like to ask you to state your first name and which school you go to.
My name is Henry and I go to St. Anne's School.
My name's Dolan Oliveira and I go to St. Edward.
Hi, I'm Steve Patilli. I'm the Assistant Scoutmaster at Troop 872.
I'm Max Fed and I go to St. Anne's School.
I'm Mateo Fort and I go to St. Edward's.
I am Daniel Patilli and I go to St. Anne's School.
I am Gabriel Green and I go to St. Edward Parish School.
I'm Navneer Gratnam and I go to St. Mary's School.
I'm Stevie Hopper and I go to St. Anne's School.
I'm Aiden McCormick and I go to St. Edward's School.
I'm Adam Chan. I go to Aliso Niguel.
Clancy Ford, Assistant Scoutmaster, Troop 872.
Very good. Thank you very much. I think this is the photo up now.
Okay, color guard dismissed.
Just gonna do a brief presentation. What's on your scripture, Colin?
All right, this evening our presentation will be given by the Honorable Brian Probolski, Vice President of the Moulton-Niguel Water District. At this time, I would like to ask Vice President Probolski to come forward for the presentation, please.
I guess that's slides, huh? Okay, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council, staff, residents of Laguna Niguel. I am very pleased to be here tonight on behalf of the staff and the directors of the Moulton-Niguel Water District. We also have some of our staff and 3 of our directors, Larry Lazat, Richard Fiore, and Scott Colton with us tonight. And very, very happy to be here. I'm here to commend the city of Laguna Niguel for its efforts to conserve water and save money through using our turf replacement program. When Moulton-Niguel launched this program in 2011, we never could have imagined how successful it would have been. And now, 6 years later, we've replaced 5 million square feet of turf. The project helped us get over the milestone is the Crown Valley Park, which was just completed this summer. I think there are some transformation photos on the screen. 5 million sounds like a big number because it is a big number. To match that total, you'd have to replace the grass in every NFL stadium 5 times over. But it's nothing compared to the water savings. According to our water efficiency experts, for every square foot of water, every square foot of turf that you remove, you save about 46 gallons of water per year. Moulton-Niguel's turf replacement program is saving 228 million gallons of water per year. That's almost $250 million annually. Again, the numbers are large. It's hard to understand. So let me put it this way. Moulton-Niguel could give an 8-ounce glass of water to roughly half of the people on Earth every year. And we never could have reached that milestone without the city of Laguna Niguel. The city's most recent efforts at the Crown Valley Park are what finally pushed us over the top. From the beginning, the city has welcomed this program, partnered with us, and helped us spread the word. All on its own, the city of Laguna Niguel has removed 137,999 square feet of turf. At Moulton-Niguel, we're very precise. No rounding up. You get credit for 137,999. Maybe someone could find the other square foot somewhere. That decision resulted in rebates to the city of $275,000, $250,000 that you saved taxpayers through the program. I think our council deserves a round of applause for this great program. You've saved taxpayers a large amount of money, but you've saved even more water. Roughly 60% of all inefficient water use is from outdoor irrigation. By replacing this turf, you saved 6.3 million gallons per year just for the city itself. Thank you. You've helped us get through the last drought, and your preparation will prepare us for the next emergency. One final closing pitch. For anyone that wants more drought-tolerant landscape, we're still running the program. So check in with Molten Niguel and find out how you can save and get your own rebates. And this evening I brought a proclamation from the Water District to present to the council, and I'd like to invite my fellow board members up with me to make that presentation, if I might, Mr. Mayor.
You sure can. I think we should go down. It's a good exercise.
I'm just a photographer.
No.
I could get a few on this one.
Thank you very much for the instruction.
That's the only presentation. Yeah.
We got a meeting to go to. This.
I know.
People out there.
This concludes our presentations this evening. We will now move on to the public communications. Any person wishing to address the City Council on any matter, whether or not it appears on this agenda, is required to submit a completed gold-colored request to speak form to the City Clerk prior to being heard by the City Council. Each person will be given 3 minutes to speak, and with the exception of these cards that I have, do I have any more cards or requests to speak?
No, Mayor.
Very good. The first one is Ms. Teresa Moraga.
My name is Teresa Moraga, and I live in Sterling Niguel on Rigger, right across the street from the apartments, Windrich Apartments. And the only thing that
Ma'am, this is with regard to one of the items on the agenda, correct?
Yes, the parking.
Okay, I suggest
parking?
that
Yeah, it's,
under Public Works item number 1, I suggest that to come back later when that item comes up.
Okay.
Thank you. I do have quite a few forms for Senior Center parking lot, and I wanted to ask our interim assistant city manager to advise us on how we wanted to go about it.
Mayor Minigar and members of the City Council, I was asked over the last couple of days to provide some information and updates with regard to the proposed parking lot near the Senior Center. And so If it's your pleasure, I'd be happy to share that information with the entire audience, if you're okay with that.
Please,
Okay.
please move forward.
As you know, this project was discussed during our budget season, and then Ross Anderson, a temporary employee with the City of Laguna Niguel, had contacted the Lake Park HOA to set up a meeting to see about possible easements that might be beneficial for the construction of a parking lot on the land that Chappelle had donated to the city. And with that contact, the HOA had indicated that they'd like to hold a meeting. And a meeting was set up for June 13th. Ultimately, that meeting was not held. It was determined, since we hadn't yet hired a design consultant, that the meeting would be more productive if we actually had some drawings and some better concepts about what the parking lot might entail. So the meeting was canceled. And as the summer progressed, we ended up holding a meeting on Monday night, September 18th, with the residents, and the residents made it very clear to us what their feelings were with regard to a potential parking lot. And at that point in time, we also set up an additional meeting with the HOA board on September 25th. Based on the comments received, the parking design consultant has stopped the project. So we're no longer proceeding with that project at this time. One of the things that we did instead is we used the same consultant to look at the existing parking lot. Could there be a reconfiguration that might result in greater parking capacity in the existing parking lot? And the answer is yes. Coincidentally, about 20 additional spaces, the same number of spaces that could be on the Little Chappelle piece of property, could be found in our existing parking lot, so long as we are okay with removing some of the trees and some of the landscaped areas. But it will still maintain the large tree that's in the center of the lot. By making these improvements in the parking lot, we'll have to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. So we'll make sure that we're in compliance with that, to be sure. And also, creating additional parking spaces triggers the need to do to address water quality issues. So one of the ideas is that we might actually have the water flow onto the Chappelle donated property, make it a dry stream creek bed so that the water could flow there and percolate back into the soil. Maybe have some prettier plantings there and a path for the children to walk to the elementary school, because that was one of the ideas that the residents had mentioned several times. Another idea that we may or may not do, depending on what comes out of the recommendations, is we may end up changing the shape of some of the planters at the existing Sea Country Community Center to create more of a bioswale with those areas. We estimate that the parking overflows maybe 8 to 10 times a month. Generally speaking, it's on Tuesdays and Thursdays between 11 and 1, or on special events. And as city staff, one of the things that we talked about also is on some of these major city events, especially during the weekend, we may have more shuttling from the elementary school parking lot. One of the things that had been expressed to us by the residents is that the bridge at Yosemite Park was unsafe. We have looked at the bridge, and while it's not unsafe, it does need attention. So staff will be continuing to review that, come up with some options, and present to council our ideas at the mid-year budget review in February of 2018. And I believe that is all the information I have and all the updates I have at this moment. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Mr. Mayor, I had one.
Please.
I realize this isn't on our agenda, and just for the public's comments, we can't have a discussion about it because it's not agendized for tonight. But I have heard the comments of the residents, and I would like to make a motion that we place on the next for the next meeting for the city council, a motion to just do away with the concept of placing parking on that parcel, and just eliminate that as any contingency.
I'll second it.
Second.
I think we'll all second.
We're all
it.
seconding it.
Unanimously second. And by the way, Mr. Mayor, I just want to make sure for purposes of my motion, I had a question tonight about it again. When this was first brought up about considering the architecture for that parcel of property, I abstained from that vote because at the time I had not yet calculated the number of feet between that parking lot and my home. If it's within 500 feet, I have to abstain. And because I have now done that and I found it to be outside of the 500 feet, I am now no longer required to abstain from that vote, and that's why I made the motion. So thank you very much.
Very good. So All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It
Aye.
passed by the unanimous vote. So at this juncture, Ms. Bill, do I need to go through all these? You know, I do have quite a few that they're going to be talking about the same parking lot facilities, so,
Right.
so you're welcome to come forward. The first one is Ms. Irene Kennedy. Thank you, ma'am. The next one is Mr. William Dahlquist.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is William E. Dahlquist. I go by Bill. And my wife Birgit and I live at 28431 Rancho de Linda. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak about traffic and parking on Rancho de Linda. When we moved into our house in 1996, parking was allowed on both sides of the street. Eventually, the increase of non-resident vehicles presented parking and traffic flow problems. This was addressed by initiating a park by permit only program, which is still in place to this day. Because of numerous family problems, I failed to attend recent related meetings, including the September 19th meeting that you had. However, I did pull up a copy of the minutes, and I hope I understand where we are. My main concern is that we do not allow non-residents to park on Rancho de Linda as they once did day and night, and hopefully can retain our present permit program.
Sir, for the interest of time, just this item is going to be Public Works item number 1. You're welcome to go over more details if you wish to. It's your call.
Yeah, I have nothing more other than the diagrams that I showed.
Yes, we do have a copy of that. Thank you very much,
And as we all
sir.
see, it is a problem for us there.
Thank
But
you.
that's fine.
We're going to discuss it later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Next, Ms. Amy Hoekstra. Thank you, ma'am. Next, Ms. Jessica Dawes. Thank you. Next, Trent Cornell. Thank you, sir. Next, Mr. Robert Casella.
I just want to know if this is going to be on the agenda for next meeting? Was that declared?
It
may or it will?
According to the staff, yes.
Yeah. And anything I have to say today then would be best served next time, possibly? And I would ask you, you said a lot of possibilities for an alternative parking situation over on the Sea Country parking lot. You said this may happen, this may, and why couldn't you say it will happen without, I'm assuming without the agenda, is that correct? Okay, well, I'll be back to speak then, so I can get some feedback, because I have a lot to ask and a lot to say. But I also want to say that with the environmental impact report, if you look at the criteria, the categories, the impact categories, I don't see any that affect us that are non-mitigating. And that's what I was going to point out, among other things. So, and you don't have to do a zoning change, and we're not sure that you're exempt from the zoning change. I asked the city attorney, and he said he'd have to look into it. So if there is going to be a parking lot behind my house, I would be refuting the zoning change if you had to have it, if you're not exempt. So these are a lot of issues. There are a lot of issues that we have to argue against. But if it's going to be on the agenda and you're going to vote on it next week or next meeting, is that the
Yeah,
case?
we think so.
After you get, you are or you're not?
If it's going to be on the agenda, definitely yes.
You vote on it after
Yes.
hearing our arguments?
If it's going to be on the agenda,
Thank you.
yes. Thank you for coming, and your points are well taken. Ms. Bridget Mills.
From the residents of Lake Park, I just want to thank you for your hard work and your consideration for the alternative ideas that we presented at our meeting at the community center. I'm just really excited to hear that you guys are open to other alternatives that, other than paving over the green space that we have. So I thank you.
Thank you for coming. Next, Ms. Karen Jamal. Thank you, ma'am. Next public comment, Ms. Carol Lee Darnell.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. I'll be very, very brief. I'm with Southern California Edison. I am the South Orange County representative, and prior to this, I was serving only some of the South County cities, and in the last month, Laguna Niguel has come into my portfolio. Councilmember Davies and I were just at the ACCOC trip in Washington, D.C., so we're very familiar with each other, but I wanted to come down so that all of you would be able to put a face to the name. So I am your new SCE rep. I've left copies of my card with your city clerk. So any concerns that you have or any issues, please feel free to reach out to me directly. With that, I'll let you get on with your business.
Well, thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you.
Next, Ms. Tracy Ingebrigtsen. Please, this is the time. You got 3 minutes.
Oh, brother. You did a great job on my last name. So again, my name is Tracy Ingebrigtsen, and I'm here representing the Aliso Niguel High School Instrumental Music Boosters. And we wanted to thank the City of Laguna Niguel for awarding our program a $4,000 grant from the Community Service Cultural Arts Grant Program. Our program relies mainly on our family donations to support our championship marching band, drumline, and color guard program. And not all of our families are able to donate, but all students, regardless of their financial contributions, are able to participate. So each year, approximately 10% of our 120 students are unable to donate at all. So this grant allows us to partially fill that gap. So we wanted to thank you again for your help in that regards, and an extra special thank you to Dorna for her help in administrating the program. So thank you very much. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you. You're welcome. All right. The public comments are closed. We will now move on to the consent calendar, items 1 through 16. Are there any items that need to be pulled for comments or discussions by my colleagues? Was it under Public Works item number 1, which is this stack, or item number 16, which is the fee waiver? With regard to action on signs, please, it was on the wrong stack, please.
Mayor Menegar and members of the council, I appreciate this time. I felt it was important to come down here and speak again. I was here at the last meeting. I expressed concern over the signs that had been going up in the parks about excluding dogs. You may recall that?
Absolutely.
I wanted to express my thanks, that particularly to Terry Dixon, for his responsiveness and the effective way in which the council and Mr. Dixon approached this problem. They acted very quickly and effectively. The signs have been taken down. Appropriate signs have been posted that properly regulate the people that have dogs and want to access the parks. So with that, I think I'm speaking on behalf of thousands of dog owners. I say thank you very much. We're back in the parks and we enjoy it.
You're quite welcome, sir. All right, getting back to the consent calendar, items 1 through 16.
Nothing.
Mr. Mayor, I have 2 things I have to abstain from, one of which is the warrants on number 1. Those are payments. They include payments being made on the community grants, which I had to abstain from because some of the money apparently was going to my son's booster program, so I had to abstain from that. So I have to abstain on number 1. And on number 10, it relates to some median landscape improvements, which are within the 500-foot zone of my property. So in an abundance of caution, I have to pull out of that one and number 2. So with the exceptions of number 1 and 10, I'd make a motion that we approve the balance of the consent
Well,
calendar.
before you move forward, I have to recuse myself on item number 9 for potential conflict of interest. So all other items, I'll be seconding the motion that would be coming from
I move that
Mayor Pro Tem.
I move that we, well, nothing was pulled, right? So I move that we approve the consent calendar
Any
with the
second?
extensions noted.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. The motion is carried unanimously. Okay. Getting to Public Works item number 1, citywide parking permit program.
Honorable Mayor and council members, the screen.
After your presentation, we're going to ask for the public. Oh, item 16 was for the auxiliary. Oh, I beg your pardon, please. Item 16, Mr. Dennis Mulvaney, sir. You wanted to talk about item number 16. It was on the consent
Yes,
calendar.
I-
Please,
yes,
this is
I
your
heard that.
time.
But
You
it-
got 3 minutes.
Good. It's a wonderful time to thank you very much. Right now, as an evening of friends, wine and art, this is the fundraiser by and to the benefit of the Laguna Niguel Historical Society, the American Legion Niguel Post 281, and the American Legion Auxiliary Unit 281. And we definitely appreciate the waiver on the time that we needed for this fundraiser on this Saturday, October 21st, between 6 and 9. I thought I'd give it a little plug. And you definitely all are very well invited. And thank you very much. We found out that that time was very good, but we were going to need a lot more time to set up all of these. We got over 65 artworks, and we've got to set up and decorate the area. So thank you very much for giving us that added time to make the setups. So congratulations. I hope you all make it.
Thank you very much, and we also thank you for your service to this great city. Mr. Nasser, I will start.
Honorable Mayor and council members, a draft permit parking program was reviewed by the Traffic Commission in the last few months, and they forwarded the program with a series of recommendations to the City Council. Last month, on September 19th, at its meeting, the City Council reviewed the draft program and provided some comments. Some of the main ones have been captured here. One of the comments was the proposed program is confusing, that the existing parking districts should remain intact with no changes. There should be no fees for creation of parking districts or issuance of permits. And also in future parking districts, there should be a reasonable number of permits issued to each residential unit. In response to these comments, staff is suggesting that we set aside the draft program that was proposed and the commission had reviewed, and instead make 2 changes to the existing city code. That's section 7-4607, and the 2 changes are to limit the number of permits to each residential unit to 3, as long as the available curb space supports it, and allow no guest permits. I'd like to underscore that the proposed changes are for future parking districts and they don't apply to the existing ones. By way of illustration, if a typical household with a 2-car garage and a driveway, if they're granted 3 permits, that means that 7 vehicles will be able to park on or adjacent to the property within a future parking district. Staff's recommendation is to adopt the resolution that's before you this evening to again allow 3 permits per residential units and no guest permits in the future parking districts. That pretty much concludes staff's presentation. I'll be happy to respond to any questions you may have.
Well, before we move forward with the discussions of the City Council, I do have quite a few forms from the citizens that wanted to talk about this subject. So I open up the public comments. The first one is Mr. Philip Worth.
Good evening. My name is Philip Wolf. I live on 28591 La Cumbre, Laguna Niguel. I wish to speak tonight because I think there's a couple of issues. First off, in speaking with a number of other neighbors and in the community, I don't think there has been enough discussion about what this parking permit really is going to do to impact to the future of Laguna Niguel citizens. I also am not representing the Colinas HOA board, but I did contact with the Keystone Management Company, and they informed me that they have not received any information about the most recent changes that are being proposed tonight. So I think that we've got a breakdown in communication between one of the people that are listed, one of the boards that's listed as an interested party on the document that we have tonight, and then I think on a wider community basis, I don't think a lot of people really understand what the parking permit program is attempting to do. On another note, I also, I'm not really in favor, or actually I am not in favor of a 3 permit limit. I think that's a bit of a draconian sort of measure to go back that far. And secondly, I am firmly against the idea of having no guest permits. I think that flies in the face of one of the fundamental characteristics of living in Laguna Niguel, and that is that you can have family and friends come and stay for an extended period of time. You have college students returning home for summer vacation that have their own vehicles that may not be generally a normal resident, but I would classify to be a guest of my home. And I also think that there are a lot of single-family residences here that have extended families living with them, or children who are staying home longer than they normally would. And so there are vehicles that are more vehicles than we would have had, say, back when the city was first inaugurated. So I would like to request that the council tonight do not approve this recommendation from the city the city staff, and that you give it more time so that more people can hear what other options there can be besides what's presented tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Next, Mr. Fred Tallarico.
Good evening. My name is Fred Tallarico. I'm with Vista Community Planners, Inc. I'm representing the Windridge Apartments. I wanted to thank your staff and City Council for entertaining our questions at the last meeting. I wanted to let you know that we have our entire team here if you have any questions of us tonight, and that we look forward to continue working with you and your staff to find solutions to these problems here in the city. With that, if you have any questions, thank you.
Thank you, sir, for coming. Next, Mr. Michael Corral.
Good evening, Your Honor and council members. My name is Michael Corral, and I live at 24906 Oxford Drive in Vistamar. As far as the current parking issues that we have in our community, I'd just like to say that the clear culprit of the issues within the Niguel Ranch community is the overflowing residents of the Windridge Apartments, as well as other surrounding apartment complexes, and the many subleasers who reside there along with their many vehicles. You will not find our residents abusing our neighborhood with their trash, noise, broken down cars, etc. If we have an issue with a resident, we deal with it on an individual basis within our association. We do not force the neighboring communities or the city to do it for us. This is exactly what the apartment residents and their management are doing. They are forcing our hand to control them and their abuse of the community. They are allowing far too many residents to live at this site. They do not have adequate parking to accommodate the residents, let alone the squatters, long-term house guests, and overnight partiers. In addition to the extra noise and trash, we experience crime, people sleeping in their cars, abuse of our association park, and loiterers. This is a safety issue for the city. I make almost daily calls to the sheriff for street violations. This complex needs to be managed, and it needs to be controlled. The rest of us know how to conduct ourselves within this community. The Windridge apartment dwellers have demonstrated that they do not. They park in no parking zones, make illegal maneuvers endangering pedestrians, leave trash carelessly tossed all over, and a myriad of other nuisances that destroy the quiet enjoyment for the rest of us. There is limited parking and limited space for a finite amount of people. It is not the city's job to accommodate growing families who have outgrown the purpose of their home. They must live within the constraints of their residence, not expect to have the rest of us absorb their growth. Their overflowing parking needs to be limited to the connecting curbsides and no more. All other parking of those extra vehicles should be prohibited on city streets and the Windridge property made to accommodate those extra vehicles. And to do that, the city must prohibit overnight parking on Hidden Hills Road, north side, the Niguel Ranch Drive, above Hidden Hills Road, as well as to grant parking permits under the current RPPP to all surrounding associations.
You have 30
Please-
seconds.
Please pass this problem back to the Windridge Apartments and do not cave to their legal threats. Force them to control their parking and their occupancy. Thank you.
Ms. Teresa Moraga?
My name is Teresa Moraga, and I live in Sterling Niguel, right across from Windridge. I've been a resident there since 1989. And I'm here to say that we had submitted our application to obtain the parking permit for our community. We did that before any of these new rules or before any of these have now they are in place or they are going to be in place for the 3 permits. I mean, for the 3 cars and everything that is reviewed that is new now. When I went around or when we went around within our association to obtain the signatures from our residents, you know, at that time it wasn't this new program, you know, in place. So what we told our residents is that we were going to get a permit, or as long as the car was registered to your home, you will be able to park, you know, around, you know, within your limits, right, in your homes, and we will have overnight parking and guest parking. Now, with these limited into only to 3 cars in the street, well, that might work for some residents, but in our community, I think we have 51 homes with no driveway. We don't have a driveway. So there you go. That's like already -2. I don't know who said it was 7 cars. No, it's not, because we have 2 in the garage and it would be like 3 on the street. So I don't think that that's gonna work for our HOA. And then you keep saying, well, it's grandfather, or that we are grandfather in as like the same thing like Somerset Point or Somerset, you know, that they're grandfather in. But, you know, if we don't have to go through the process, through the new process, why should we be then in the new program? Why can't we stay with the old program? Because that's not what we told the people. I never told them you're only gonna get 3 parkings. So
30 seconds.
So with that, I really ask you to consider us and leave us with the old rules and not with the new rules. I guess that's all I have to say for that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Patrick Kahilane?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Patrick Cahalan, and I live at 24871 Rigger in the Sterling Niguel Homeowners Association. Like Teresa, I was one of the people who went around to collect the signatures from our homeowners back in April and May, which is 18 months ago, or more than 18 months ago now. To reiterate what Teresa said, we did explain to the people back then that they were getting unlimited parking permits for any car that was registered at the house. They would get guest permits and there was no fee. And we are now told that we are in with the new group of permitted people, that we were no longer an established group, which I would disagree with. So we went through the whole getting the people to sign up for the old parking permits. Staff did their studies, and we were just about to be accepted into the program when everything was put on hold until we revised the new parking permits. There are only two groups in this particular situation. I believe it is our group, Stirling and Nagel, and the other group is Somerset Point. The $1,500 application fee was even waived because there was no talk about a $1,500 application fee when we actually started the program. And I would ask the City Council to grandfather in. I cannot speak for Somerset Point, but I would like to speak for my own neighbours in Stirling and Nagel. I would like to ask the City Council to grandfather Stirling and Nagel in with the other 11 districts into the old parking system where we can get parking permits for any car that's registered to our house and the guest parking. And because we have started this process over 2 years ago, and we've been to numerous traffic commission meetings, and now we're back with the City Council to see if we can advance our parking permits. I thank you for your time, and I hope that you will give us a favourable outcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next, Mrs. Aniko Sherry.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Aniko Sherry, 28351 Rancho de Lindo, and I am here tonight as a homeowner. Would like to thank you all for all your listenings to my neighborhood, and on excuse me, on the behalf of my neighborhood, would like to ask you to support the resolution and approve that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Dan Goro.
Good evening. I am Dan Guerra, Vice President of the Somerset Point Homeowners Association. Although I've been thinking about changing my name because I've been in front of you for so long to Dan Deja Vu. So here I am again. I live at 29861 Weatherwood in Laguna Niguel. As you may recall, we have been meeting with you, the Traffic and Transportation Commission, and Public Works staff since July 2015, 27 months ago, to request that Somerset Point become a permit parking district. Resolution 2016-1184 was passed January 19, 2016, establishing a partial solution to track the results and report back to the Traffic Commission in 120 days of what happened. When that failed to provide the intended results of relief in our parking, some changes were made to signage on Marina Hills Drive and notification again to apartment residents that parking was available there on Marina Hills. Testing was extended for an additional 60 days. When that again did not work, we were prepared to report back to Traffic Commission August 24, 2016. Unfortunately, on August 16th, just prior to that meeting, Seagate Nagel HOA was granted permit parking status, and further applications were put on hold pending the citywide residential permit parking program study. The August 24 meeting that we were to appear at the very end of our process, That was canceled at the Traffic Commission. And here we are today. So, in light of the past and the long delay, our cooperative work with the city for 27 months, and the fact that at least 66% of homeowners on every street in Somerset Point and 90% overall all signed their names and voted for a permit parking district. And parking on the streets now is again at an all-time high. We ask the following: that you approve the citywide RPPP with the proposal. We're fine with the 3 on curbside. That you approve that. And 2, that you include the Somerset Point HOA streets as a parking district, along with the 11 existing grandfathered parking districts. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, sir. Next, Mr. Gary Priegel.
Gary Priegel. I live on 25062 Sonoria Street. I've been there for going on 28 years, and it's over the parking issue that we have. We're having a problem with it growing on the Hidden Hills Street, and the safetiness of the school and the double parking is causing problems for people to get out of the community in the mornings to go to work. It's quite a serious problem because we have speeders and other things driving up and down the Hidden Hills at this point, and the speed limit is, I think it's 35, and they're going between 40 and 50 miles an hour on an average. Okay, and the other problem is, I don't think we have an issue in our community ourselves, in the homeowners in ourselves, because once you've granted the permit parking, it's cleared up the situation. So I don't see a need in changing this. The serious problem is the double parking out there on the street now, and we have jaywalkers that are running across the street, which I don't know if anybody's been hit yet, but we don't have crosswalks out there. We don't have speed bumps out there. We have a lot of different issues. It's a serious matter. I have some pictures here. We got commercial trucks parking up and down the street on both sides. The people can't even drive up and down the street and without going over the double yellow, and we hear that constantly all night long, going over the double yellow and the speed bumps in the double yellow, keeping us up at night, along with the loud exhaust systems setting off the alarms continuously all night long, which I'm sure that you're aware of that, because they put the loud exhaust systems on their cars and the vibration sets off the alarms. And we've contacted the police in many different situations and don't see the police over there too often with it. They say there's nothing they can do about the alarm systems. I have a couple pictures here. It shows all the commercial trucks parked up and down the streets. And we really need to focus on where the issue is coming from, not the residential houses, which I thank you very much for granting us the permits in there. But we need to move further on with where we need to address the issues. And I think that the adjoining curb space that was put out there on the report that you paid to have done by an outside vendor, and I think we should focus on that. I think that would take care of a lot of the problems. The adjoining curb space would help quite a bit for the Hidden Hills. We need to save Hidden Hills. We have a serious problem. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Your points are well taken. Thank you.
Here's the picture.
Next, Mr. Philip Worth. Chris Mauricio. I beg your pardon if I mispronounce your name.
That's okay, Mr. Mayor. My name is Chris Maraki, and thank you for allowing me to speak before you this evening. I am also here as a resident of the Sterling Nagel Housing Development. I live at 24872 Rigger. I'm a homeowner and resident of the great city of Laguna Niguel since the year 2000. And I guess our request here tonight is a simple one of the council and of the mayor. And that is to think about representing the interests of those of us who are longtime homeowners and residents in this great community, and not to represent the interests of some real estate development firm who is here represented tonight, whose representatives do not live in this city. So we would like you to hear our voices and to hear our concerns. As a long-term resident in Sterling Niguel, we have watched the degradation of that community along Hidden Hills. We happen to live along the street, so the back side of our home faces Hidden Hills. Once upon a time, the parking for Windridge was prohibited from being able to park along that side of the street on our side of the community, along Hidden Hills. And it worked out pretty well. Then over time, that parking restriction was removed, and then the parking encroached upon that side of the street, and then later onto the access street of Karma, which leads into our development. And then more recently, it has spilled over into the development itself. And so now we can't even park our cars in front of our own homes because we have these residents of Hidden Hills now, of Windridge, parking in our community. So what has resulted from that? Well, you've heard previously stated, we have noise at all times of night with cars racing up and down the street. We have drunk drivers that are hitting cars, hit and run. I know this because I hear it from my window, and I'm calling the sheriff's department on a continual basis. You have parties coming out of the complex. You have litter being spilled out everywhere, and unsafe driving conditions in general. Now we're seeing that encroaching into our own community, and that same level of danger, of degradation, of property value, which is now suffering as a result of this. We have tolerated it because we've been asked to compromise and to recognize that the residents of Windridge should be granted the opportunity to park, and we understand that. And we've given up a lot of space on the street and on the access street.
You have 30 seconds.
But now that they're encroaching into our development, I think it's time for us to take a stand and ask, look, these permits need to be done away, or that the new structure permit should be done away with. The original was something we agreed to, and it protected our interest. But this new one is oppressive. It doesn't serve our needs. And we would ask that you would stand up and represent the rights of the homeowners and help us to preserve our property values. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for coming. Next, Mr. Tim Bowman.
Mr. Mayor, council members, fellow residents, my name is Tim Bowman. I live at 30012 Whitecap in Sterling Niguel. I wish to concur with the statements that have been made that we want Sterling Niguel to be granted grandfathering under the original plan that was agreed to and not the current plan that is before the council now. But we also want to address the overall problem. Each of the neighborhoods has limited parking. Many of us in Sterling Niguel do not have driveways. So even with 1 or 2 cars in the garage, we still have to park on the street. And going through Sterling Niguel, you will not find a place where you can put 3 cars on the street in front of a house. Our street parking is being taken up by cars from the apartment complexes. We have nowhere to park. The constant influx will not be reduced unless there is a neighborhood plan to do so, as they go to extremes to park an area to include parking way down and then pulling out skateboards to ride back to the apartments. Now, in having a neighborhood-specific plan, each community bears a sense of self-security and responsibility. As the apartment complexes or neighborhoods, they have this same responsibility, and it is to them to provide adequate parking. If their current parking is inadequate, that is indicative of a larger problem, notably over-occupancy beyond health and safety levels, and I and my fellow Sterling Niguel residents call upon the city to address that. Now, the safety issue impacts all of us on Hidden Hills Road. In the 20 years that I have lived here, I've watched a parking grow from noticeable to overcrowded and unsafe. It is becoming increasingly difficult to turn on Hidden Hills Road from the side streets, and is likewise hazardous to drive down the street, as overparking makes it increasingly narrow, and having doors constantly open into traffic is dangerous for the drivers and parkers alike. It is further dangerous for the parkers as we constantly see damaged vehicles, broken glass, and vehicle parts due to the compacted nature of the parking. Moreover, the congestion has become an eyesore. Incoming visitors inquire to me as what is happening that demands so much parking. They think a special event is going on. When I tell them that is normal, they have to wonder why. Furthermore, it leads to trash, abandoned vehicles that further degrade the neighborhood. This is lowering the property value for the homeowners in the housing tracts, and it's giving the apartment complexes an undeserved reputation as bad neighborhoods. Now, we do not wish to have acrimony between the housing tracts and the apartment complexes. We consider them our neighbors and our fellow residents of the city. Nonetheless, each neighborhood has a responsibility to their respective residents and a duty to be courteous to each other.
You have 20 seconds.
We ask that the city maintain good order by allowing the parking permits as we asked for previous to this current motion, and also to have the apartment complexes exercise their sense of self-responsibility, provide adequate parking within the confines of their complexes. And that goes to all means necessary by reducing the over-occupancies that they currently have, and also they're doing their own renovations with the interior of their complexes to make that happen. Thank you very much for this chance to address the councils.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Thank you for coming. I do have the last request to speak form by Mrs. Mary Cahilan.
My name is Mary Callan. Oh, sorry. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council members. My name is Mary Callan, and I have lived at 24871 Rigger in Sterling Nagel Homeowner Association since 1998. On behalf of Sterling Nagel HOA, I have been involved in the permit parking process over the past 2 years and have attended and spoken at many of the Traffic Commission meetings. Sterling Nagel Homeowner Association would appreciate your consideration of the following points. Many have been mentioned earlier today, but I will restate them. In the spring of 2016, Sterling Nagel started the process of establishing the parking permit program for our homeowner association. We did so because, like our good neighbors to the east of us, Seagate Nagel, we were experiencing an increase in the amount of cars parking on our streets from outside sources. Keep in mind, Seagate Nagel and Sterling Nagel are the only two HOAs that are directly across from Windridge Apartments. Seagate has been given their permit parking. We were very close to getting them, just like Somerset. In April and May of 2016, Sterling Nagel collected the required 67% of homeowner signatures to proceed. Our residents voted on and agreed to the original parking permit program that had unlimited parking decals to all vehicles registered to their addresses, no fee for permits, and 3 overnight visitor placards. At the time, a revised parking permit program did not exist. Laguna Niguel staff completed their overnight study in our area in Sterling Nagel, from which it was determined that Sterling Nagel qualified as a parking permit district. At this time, still no revised parking permit program existed. In all the Traffic Commission meetings, Sterling Nagel was always grouped in, to my knowledge, with the 11 other parking districts because we fulfilled and met all the requirements prior to the deadline. Even when the revised parking permit program was introduced, we were exempt from paying the $1,500 application fee because the city staff studies had already been completed by then. All of the above would suggest that Sterling Nagel, along with Somerset Point, met all the criteria required to be established as a permit parking district prior to October 1st of 2017, making us, Sterling Nagel, one of the 13 communities to do so. In all fairness to our residents who voted yes for the original program, Sterling Nagel should be included with the 11 other districts and grandfathered into the original parking program.
You have 10 seconds.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, ma'am. Do I have any more requests to speak forms?
There are no more here.
If
Mayor.
not, the public comments are closed. I wanted to start off with our Mayor Pro Tem, Elaine Genoway, to start the discussions.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Minigar. This has been a complex issue before us, and I really appreciate all the residents coming out and giving us your perspective, because that's very valuable to us as a council when we look at the different perspectives of it. And also to city staff. I mean, we had something very complicated before us, and you took all the input we gave you at the last meeting and now brought this back to us in a much simplified version. Many of the points that I'd want to make have already been stated tonight, especially by the residents, but I am in favor of this proposal. I think it's a good proposal, this recommendation, but I also think we need to take a look at two neighborhoods that were so close in the process. Somerset Point is a perfect example of a community working in partnership with their city, and they went through, actually jumped through hoops and trying out different things in different versions and bringing that information back and having the city do the review to see if there were any alternatives possible before going to a full parking district. So I really commend the Homeowners Association Board and the people in that neighborhood for doing that. Also, by doing that, they also other people skipped ahead of them in line because they were taking longer. So if they weren't being such a good community partner with the city, they wouldn't even be sitting here tonight. They'd already have their parking permit. So I think we need to take a look at that. We also need to consider the Sterling Nagel neighborhood, which was right behind them in the process. So we have those two neighborhoods that need to be given some consideration. And in light of what we've have studied over many months now, I would like, and I've discussed this with the city attorney today, maybe on some appropriate wording, but I am in favor of this new parking permit program, but I would also, when we consider it, also like to grandfather in Somerset Point and Sterling Nagel as the 12th and 13th parking districts in our city. And City Attorney Dixon, do you have any wording how we could include that into the resolution? I don't know if you want to present that now or when we finish the discussion.
If I may interject, maybe later after we hear all the discussions, Mr. City Attorney, any other comments? All right, my colleague, Councilmember John Mark Jennings.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me start out by saying we hear you, and we have heard you for a long time, and your comments mean something. You are engaged with your city. We have a full meeting room tonight. We've had many of those over the past 2 years, as has the Traffic Commission. This is how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to hear your feedback. We're supposed to make reasoned decisions and try to follow what you do. Parking and the congestion that it causes are true issues, and your city council is very actively trying to take note of that. We have made a huge effort to understand what the issues are. There's been a tremendous amount of public outreach, and unbelievably, we have most of that written down in very long form for not only what's been said tonight and in the meetings past from the city council, but also all the comments made to the Traffic Commission have been conveyed up to us. And while we are the final arbiters, we don't want to lose that part of the process that's come before. So I'm incorporating my thoughts in to that as well. What's before us tonight's a little bit different than has been presented before. It started out that there was a proposal to charge you for parking permits, and I'm very much against that. I view fees as taxes, and I'm against those generally. So any place that we can try to remove that, I think it's the right thing to do, and I'm glad to see that the current proposal removes that from this. You know, really now is the time to get this fixed, and I think that the only reason that Somerset and Somerset and the Sterling Nagel aren't in this process already is because it got stalled while we were looking at the process, and I think that that is somewhat unfair to them. I'm very much in favor of the proposal that the Councilwoman Genoway eloquently stated that they should be included. I don't think any reason that they shouldn't be. I just had a question for Director Abizadeh. Do I understand correctly that as it's written, those two would not be included in the current districts? Is that correct?
That is correct.
So
yes.
if we were going to do that, we'd have to modify the wording, which is what Councilman
yes.
Okay. So I want to make sure that we have that right. I'm in favor of that. You know, I weighed greatly the concept of going forward how many permits is enough? And our studies tell us that the most permits that were ever pulled were 6 permits for a single resident. And that resident had what is apparently somewhat the norm, but in some of them not, I guess. But he had 2 garage spaces, 2 spaces on a driveway, and then other places. So in theory, that one resident could have as many permits as they wanted under the old system, and then could, on top of that, get 3 guest permits on top of that. So to the speaker who mentioned the guest permit parking, the concept is, as I understand it, is that if you get 3 parking permits, you still get all of your garage and your driveway space if you have them, and those you do not need a parking permit for. If you park those vehicles on the street, you would. So if you had 3 overnight guests, 3 separate vehicles that were overnight guests, then those guest vehicles you can park on your driveway, and the permitted parking spots would be on the street. And that was the trade-off that we got, and we tried to use real-world detail, real-world analytics, what's actually happening. So the concept of having unlimited parking permits, while attractive, was not really being used. And I think practically speaking, if there was a resident that had 12 or 15 or more permits, we'd all be asking questions about why, and is that really a good thing? And in that example, I think that it would be, too much. And in this instance, I think the permit proposal of 3 is very adequate. I frankly don't know, and I've heard the comments from the Sterling Nagel people, and I'm not sure if there's a good trade-off there, because their situation is a little bit different. The 3 permits were primarily designed around the current 11 districts that we have, and those primarily have 2 parking stalls, at least inside in a garage, and then 2 in the driveway. And so we're going to have to talk about what enough is enough for Sterling Nagel if they actually don't have the driveway space to park there. And so I guess one of the considerations I would ask, and it's a question for Director Abazada, what was the concept? Forgetting the grandfathering for a second, what is the permit consideration for Sterling Nagel at the moment?
As I mentioned in my comments earlier, it's really the available curb space. So once we go out there and do our full study, we will look at the curb space and see practically how many permits can be issued per residence there. So we'll take a look at that in terms of available curb space.
Great, thank you very much. I'm in favor of this proposal. It leaves the existing system in place, and it does no harm to the people that are in the permit parking programs, and we've heard from you that you like those, and those are okay. It does not do, in my mind, any specific harm or change any circumstances for Windridge, which has not applied for a permit parking situation, so this doesn't really impact them. It impacts you who have, and those that are in the application system. And I think in balance, our job as sort of a legislative body is to try to look for very reasonable, practical, and compassionate solutions to these things. And the one that's proposed, I think, gets us most of the way there. So with that, Mr. Mayor, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council Member Lori Davies.
Thank you, Mayor. Every city has parking problems, but one solution doesn't fit all. I've been on the Traffic and Transportation for 5 years, so I'm very well aware of this issue, and we have been having workshops and meetings in regards to options and things like that, so it's not the first. And I want to thank Somerset and Sterling, again, for being such good neighbors and being patient. Greatly appreciate it. I also just want to make a quick comment that as a council member, it's our job to represent everyone that lives here, whether they live in an apartment, a condo, or they own their house, whether they rent or they own. So that's something that we need to think about. And I do appreciate the one gentleman calling each, we're neighbors here. You have bad apples everywhere you live. I've got them on my block. So I think that we need to remember to be respectful and not put everybody into one hole when it comes to making comments about that. With that said, I'm happy that we came back to this process. The last one that we showed, to me, was very confusing. I wasn't sure where we were going to go with that. I do think that the 3 parking permits would satisfy at this point. I do think, though, with Somerset and Sterling, that you should be grandfathered. And we can look at how many parking spots are available, but I think because they've gone through this process and have shown, you know, responsibility, that if they're able to get unlimited as the other ones have, that they should be able to have that. I do understand why we can't do guest parking, because you can't control that. You don't know who's getting that guest pass, if you're just using it now, or you're giving it to other neighbors and things like that. Here, at least, we have control. We know that your car is going to be registered. We have it, you know, listed here at the cities. If you find that you're going to sell that car, you come back, we'll see that. You'll show us a new registration, and you'll get a new sticker for that. Also, I do have a concern in regards to Hidden Hills, and I don't know if that's something we address tonight or at another meeting. But my concern is safety, number one. And maybe you can talk about that, and maybe this is something we need to bring up at another agenda, or it's something we deal with tonight.
It might be more prudent to take the item to the Traffic Commission and have a discussion there and bring those recommendations to the City Council.
Great. And last, one thing I did notice about this is with these permits, each district is allowed to basically determine their own time. And I think that we as a council should set some perimeters in regards to those times. Otherwise, you could say we're going to start this at 8 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock, and we're going to stop it at 10 o'clock in the morning. I know by looking at a lot of the different times that we've had, I think that the council, we could make an amendment and say that within the parameters of the permit parking would begin no earlier than 10 p.m. and finish up no later than 6 a.m. And 6 a.m., I believe, is pretty much what you see. There are a lot of people that work night shift, and they work from 11 to 6 or 10 to 6. At least when they come home, then they'd have an opportunity to be able to park. But I think we need to set, and this way too, within your district, if you want to, you know, work within theirs, that works great. And you talk about not having guest parking. Well, what this allows you to do is perhaps say, hey, listen, Sunday through Thursday, we're going to go 10 p.m. to 6, but on Friday and Saturday, since people tend to stay up and have company, we're going to extend it to 11 or 12. And that way you don't have to worry about your guests not being able to park on the street, and you won't need a guest pass because most people don't stay past 12. They stay past 12 at my house, they're out because I'm going to bed. But this way it does allow you, if you do a 12 o'clock curfew or 11 o'clock curfew, that you don't have to worry about having guest pass at that point. So this allows you to kind of, you know, modify what you want from that 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So I do support this with that amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Lori Davies. Last but certainly not least, Councilmember Jerry Schlusowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to write one little note on that. Okay, thank you. Just a quick question for Mr. Abizada. So Sterling Nagel is the only of these new ones that don't have a driveway, or are there others that don't have a garage or a driveway or something that limits what we were talking about in the number of spaces available?
That is the only pending application, that they don't have driveways, but there are other areas in town that houses don't have driveways.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Again, I agree with my colleagues that definitely, I think Sterling Nagel and Somerset for doing the work. I would compare this argument to, I remember the moratorium whenever we put that on, whatever that was, that there were a couple that were in the cycle, which was Sterling Nagel and Somerset. In the Gateway, we had some planning commission issues years ago, or some developers had already, you know, applied for permits, and we had changed some fees and some of the way we do things, as the city has the right to do, as, you know, as my council member John Mark Jennings said, as we learn, and it's a process. So as we learn new things, you know, sometimes rules change, and if you didn't make the deadline, you didn't make it. But Sterling Nagel and Somerset, as my colleagues have pointed out, I think they deserve to go with the other 11 and back to that program. I think that's really important. As far as Hidden Hills, and I get it, that's a great idea that we're going to take it to traffic, but I just want to say, in the interim, beforehand, I think we as a council, hopefully as a body, can at least ask or direct staff to you know, start looking at potential crosswalks now, without waiting for what what traffic has to say. And you know, the normal, I'm sure there's a process for this in Public Works for speed bumps or speed humps. If they're necessary, how you gauge those. There might be some studies. If you could look at that, if we all agree on that as well. And then for law enforcement, I know you guys do a great job and quite busy all the time. But again, if you could, they pointed out sometimes early morning drive time, and then others said late at night. But certainly if you could, watch for that when you have those moments where you have available deputies that could, try to, enforcement sometimes is a really good effort, because we do seem to need Hidden Hills. I mean, there's just sheer numbers, but maybe if we can control it through some, what do you call it, traffic mitigation and calming and law enforcement, maybe that could add some value. But again, if we, as a staff, direction. So the other question I guess I had is on this, is 3 enough? And the no guest permits. I do understand the guest permits are really difficult to deal with and regulate, but, is there a reason why it's not for those other neighborhoods? I just, sometimes it's just a number to me. I don't know. Would it impact the amount of space on the streets where there wouldn't be any streets if everyone pulled 4? How'd you come up with 3 versus 4?
There's no magic number, really. In our evaluation, we felt that 3 was a good number. As I stated in the example that I gave, a typical household with a 2-car garage and a driveway that can accommodate 7 cars. I think most households, they have 5 or 6 or 7 cars at most. So I think that's a reasonable number. And the issue with the guest permits, we have heard of allegations that those are being sold, being loaned out. There is no policing of guest permits. That's the reason we're recommending none.
Right, yeah, no, I'm not in favor of guest permits either, but I just was wondering if the number mattered. I guess they can always re-petition for a different number, but the last question goes to my Councilmember Davies, who was, served all this traffic commission, so they obviously have the inside scoop. On setting the time, so you're making a motion for the time that we regulate the Sunday through Thursday night, is that right?
Actually, you're just setting a parameter, bottom line, that it starts at 10 o'clock and goes to 6 a.m. And then within each district, they're allowed to decide on their hours within that. And they can decide however they want to do it. If they want to extend it for the weekend, that's their option. But this way, it's consistent across the board. Most of the streets are like that, either they're 10 or they're 11. I'd say we'll go with 10. And to 6 a.m. So that's pretty consistent with the cities, but I think we need to have this in our ordinance so that the parameters are there and they don't come up for parking passes going, well, we'll pick 7. This way they've got to stay within that.
Right. How's it work in those 11 other districts, though? Just curious. How's that work?
They're mostly 10 to 6. There are a couple of exceptions, but majority of them are 10 to 6.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Good. I just needed to understand. So if that's an addition to this motion or amendment, and again, I know my colleague, which we're all agreeing on, Genoway, she was talking about, I guess, to Mr. Dixon, but I know you haven't spoken to Mr. Mayor either, but it seems like we would want to put an amendment about Somerset and Sterling Nagel being grandfathered as well. But thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Well, we've heard all the discussions. I've been very involved, like my colleague, Councilwoman Lori Davies. I don't want to repeat what my 4 esteemed colleagues have mentioned. I've been in the Traffic and Transportation Commission. I served for almost 10 years. Your points are well taken. I empathize with you, and I sympathize with you. I clearly understand the issue is parking supply versus demand. What we have in the city as a municipal corporation, what we can do via on-street parking, and what we as a municipal government can be dictating. But as my colleague, Councilwoman Lori Davies mentioned, my colleague in the Traffic and Transportation Commission, we have to be truly cognizant to all the residents of our beautiful, great city. If we decide on being one-sided for the homeowners to advocate strictly, specifically, and explicitly for the homeowners, I don't think us, as a body representative of the entire city, we've been elected at large, that we have done our job properly. Therefore, we have moral obligation on the top of analyzing the whole thing from a technical perspective, as I said, that to see what is the best for the majority of the people, for the homeowners, for the apartment, residents and condo, owners or people that would be residing in those residential units. Therefore, not to repeat what you've already heard, I do concur with the statements of all the 4 of my colleagues, and I think to grandfather those 2 districts, in my judgment, would be a very great idea. And with that, I wanted to turn it over to our City Attorney, Terry Dixon, to to lead us in the motion that was initially started by my colleague Mayor Pro Tem Elaine Genoway, and then it was amplified by my colleague Councilmember John Mark Jennings and my colleague Councilwoman Laurie Davies, that specifically mentioned that she wants to see the operations to be between 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. and any other minor things that we need to add, so that we're gonna just revise, modify, update the motion, and we can move forward with that tonight. So once for all, after 27 months of going back and forth within the Traffic Commission, coming back to the City Council, at the end of the day, end of tonight, we wanna make sure that we make the best decision for the majority of the residents of our beautiful city. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Mendigar, members of the council. If I understand the comments correctly, the motion would be to adopt the proposed resolution with the following changes. First, the last whereas clause and paragraphs 1 and 2 would be changed to make it clear that they did not apply to the 2 pending applications. I think that could be done by changing parking districts established after October 1 to parking districts for which applications are filed after October 1. I think that would take care of that problem. And then I would add a paragraph indicating that the parking restrictions would be applicable as to any parking area established between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m.
That's what I understand. Mayor Pro Tem Elaine Genoway, any modification, amplification of the motion?
No, but do we need to do anything to declare Somerset Point and Sterling Nagel as parking districts?
No, not tonight. That
No,
wouldn't
we
be
don't need
before.
to.
Okay.
Right. Any other comments? Oh, please.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I forgot to put this in there. One of my concerns at the last meeting was the police services being taken away from patrolling the rest of the community and really becoming parking meter maids. And I think, as Director Abzadi had said, with this process and this program, it won't be doing that as the other one did. Is that correct? Good. I just wanted to make sure, because I got a lot of letters, and I was very adamant that our deputies are here to protect the entire city, and I want to make sure that they're there for the call to emergency. And if there's a problem that you're having in your district with parking, please email or make a call, and they'll address it. But emergency calls come first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Elaine Genoway. So.
Okay, so moved as stated by Attorney Dixon. Can we do that?
Very good. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion is carried unanimously 5-0.
May I ask a question?
Please.
Okay, Chief Barr, one of our speakers, Mr. Pregel, mentioned the double parking on Hidden Hills during school traffic hours. Can you be sure to alert our deputies to that? Okay, thank you.
Very good. Our next item is city manager's item, and it's item number 1, and that is a letter encouraging ongoing negotiations between the County of Orange and the Lab Holding LLC related to Agura project. Interim City Manager Erlinson, please provide us a staff report, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members. The City of Laguna Niguel remains committed to the development of the Agora project on the former county courthouse property site. The city understands that there are issues that both the County of Orange and Lab Holding LLC have been unable to reach agreement upon in past negotiations. Although the city is not a party to the lease and has no standing in these negotiations, the city is concerned that the economic and social benefits that would be realized by Laguna Niguel residents may not come to fruition if the County of Orange and Lab Holding do not continue their negotiations. The City of Laguna Niguel is proposing that further negotiations occur, with the City of Laguna Niguel acting as a facilitator to resolve the issues preventing the development of the Agora project, from which the negotiating parties and the residents of Laguna Niguel would benefit. It is recommended that the City Council sign and send a letter to both the County of Orange and Lab Holding LLC, encouraging ongoing negotiations with the City of Laguna Niguel, acting as a facilitator. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your report. At this juncture, before we start our discussions, I see Mr. Scott Meyer. Would you like to say anything? Otherwise, it's okay. If you're not planning to speak, that's okay too. It's your judgment call, because I see you sitting in the audience to represent the County of Orange. Just for the record, Supervisor Lisa Bartlett called me this afternoon before coming to this meeting, so we had a discussion on this item. The floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, Scott Mayer. I'm the Chief Real Estate Officer with the County of Orange. I just wanted to inform you that our board had given staff direction in August to issue a best and final lease draft to the Lab Holding LLC team. In response to the issuance of that best and final lease draft, the lab team denied the acceptance of those terms and conditions, and based upon that denial, the county has terminated the existing contractual agreement that it has with Lab Holding LLC. The county does want to affirm its willingness to move forward with a project at this site consistent with the development program that was pending with this project with the Agora team. And we would invite the city to participate in a future request for proposal process for such a new project. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any of my colleagues? Please, Councilwoman Lori Davies.
Thank you very much. In regards to the future proposal, would that be any of the other developers that had placed a bid for this project in the beginning?
We would be issuing a new RFP, which
Okay.
we would again invite the city and its staff to participate in.
But this would be the concept that you would be looking for the future, the one that we had with Lab Communications?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Councilmember Jerry Schlusowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, and Mr. Mayor too. God, it's just confusing myself. Different spelling though. Again, I appreciate you coming out. I really do. I work pretty closely with both sides, and I understand, some of the issues going on. So when you say terminated agreement, it's done, correct, with Lab? As far as the county, you voted on it, and it's already been a vote. It would take another vote by the Board of Supervisors to even entertain this letter and renegotiate with these guys, with Lab Holdings.
That's correct. We sent a termination of our option agreement to the Lab Holding team and their council yesterday.
But that was after a vote by the Board of Supervisors, or is it that's because the staff issued that letter?
That was pursuant to board direction back in August.
The board voted to terminate the relationship. I'm sorry.
Yes, yes,
Just wanna make
correct.
sure I
That
heard
was the
Okay,
that was
thank
the
you.
Board of Supervisors direction.
Okay. I just need to understand something, because I understand where the breakdown was. It's just more of an understanding question, because I'm not a real estate guy, but I've done some of these, been involved in some of these deals. A developer, so it's the next developer that comes along, if they need financing, they have to have a bond to pay off the financing if they don't finish the project, because somehow the money got spent and they didn't get it done, and they're not getting a return on their money. That's how it works, correct, Mr. Mayor?
Correct. There are various structures whereby full completion of the improvements can be guaranteed, but certainly a completion bond or completion guarantee are two.
Yeah, to the
means,
lender.
yes.
Now, one of the big sticking points was you guys were demanding a guaranteed completion bond as well from the county's perspective. That was one of the major holdups. Is that correct? I just want to understand this for next time.
We were requesting a full completion of the improvements pursuant to our lease. And as I said, there are various ways of providing that a guarantee of completion. And we had.
What does that mean, there's various ways? I'm just trying to.
There's a completion bond, there's a completion guarantee. We worked quite closely through council with the lab team and their attorney over a period of time to try to structure that. But unfortunately, we weren't able to do that.
Yeah, it was another couple $1 million to the team, to the Lab Holdings, and it started to not pencil for them. Is that what you recall? I'm just trying to.
I can't say
Okay,
whether
all
that's
right,
correct or not.
That's what I recall. So the concern I guess I have, I mean, obviously you've terminated the agreement, you know, but what we have now is there's, you know, it's just like any elected body, you know, whether it's us or whether it's the county, there was this desire at the beginning to do this deal. And obviously the majority on the Board of Supervisors are different folks than that voted this deal in. And this is the reason I express all this concern. This is our backyard, and we're very proud of what we want here. And our constituents, our residents, which are, you know, the residents of the 5th District of the county, really embraced this project. I mean, I think that they were very happy to have this, and they love the design. And while I know it would take another vote, it's just my concern that it seemed that some of the terms had changed in terms of what the county wanted from what was in the original RFP in terms of participation in, you know, the revenue sharing at some point in time in the future. The need for this, you know, double bond issue, which normally isn't what happens when you wanted them to effectively finish the project so you guys could own it if he somehow failed. It's what I understand a finishing bond from your side would be. So if we do this again, which obviously you guys own the land, so you're gonna do it again, but it affects us greatly, and we're gonna be watching this very, very closely on behalf of, you know, our constituents here that we solely represent in Laguna Niguel. And, you know, we capped the housing at a certain number that initially was very, very, you know, controversial, and I know that there's a number of people who still don't like the fact that we capped it at 200, and I don't know, maybe we should be more stringent on it because we do own the developing rights of that property as well. And the county, you know, years ago was interested in selling the property. Obviously, they brought you along and started saying, no, let's develop and lease the property. But a number of years have gone by, and there's no return on investment for you. You know, we've had it kind of open space, and we're kind of a open space community. You know, I just think that we need to look at ourselves, you know, a little bit closer and maybe bring this back as an item for us to look at in terms of what, you know, I know it's more of a zoning issue, you know, more of a planning commission issue, but we can kind of start that agenda and then maybe send that down. It's just something for us to consider as a body, because if they change again with another developer and then 3 years goes by or 2 election cycles go by or whatever that number is, and a new 5 come on and they say, well, no, let's not do this deal. Let's change the terms where it becomes untenable for who they selected, because there was a group that selected this group. With that, I turn it back over to Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, as well.
Thank you. Councilmember John Mark Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I thank you for the county being here tonight. Sorry to put you in the hot seat because you didn't even have to stand up, but I was going to say it anyway, so you're here, so I'll say it to you while you're here. I'm very concerned about this. You know, you've got 5 people who have significant effort, equity, work in dealing with this community, who had platforms to get into these seats that dealt directly with supporting in any way we could to see the Agora project through. And that's because 40 plus years ago, the county stood out here and told us that they were going to build a town center around this piece of property. And we're here 40 years later wondering where it's coming, when it's going to be there. And it's not there. I too have the understanding that the RFP that the county put out didn't include the completion bond and the revenue sharing that was ultimately requested. I'm very confused and concerned by that, because the RFP should have, in my mind. And if that is a changed circumstances, it seems like it's something that you could work out. You know, before you said that, did I understand correctly that the termination letter went out yesterday? Is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, you know, we had this agendized on Friday, and I'm a little bit concerned about that timing. So I have some reason to believe that that timing is not coincidental, that you came here tonight with the terminated agreement.
Well, we were unaware of this matter having been agendized. Both our county executive officer and Supervisor Bartlett were unaware of this matter, and it was only through our own diligence of checking your agenda that we found out about it. So there's no connection between the two.
Okay, I'll have to take your representation on that. Having said that, I've also seen the letter from Lab Holdings Counsel. It was a fairly clear threat of litigation. I suspect that's where this is going to end up. And one of my big concerns is because I am a litigator, I understand what those timelines look like, and we're going to be drug out into what could be multiple year litigation of a waiting time. While we're not a party in any way to that, here we are a party to having to stand by and watch it all happen. And I don't have any commitment, haven't heard any yet, that notwithstanding whatever litigation there might be, that the county's still going to go forward with an RFP process immediately and come back and try to put something in that looks fairly like that. I don't want you to leave here with the understanding, anything other than the understanding that it took a significant amount of work to get these 5 people on board with Agora, and then for us to sell that to the population in a way that was very important to the city. And we really feel like we've lost something here. It's not because Agora is unique and I'm not supporting it or its developer. That's not the comment. But when you accept an RFP and you get into the process, we did our part. We helped sell this and help promote it in a way that as Councilmember Slusowitz said, he was spot on, to get the 200 units that were requested. It's an extraordinarily controversial thing. And the gentleman's seat who I sit in now, our former mayor, Jerry McCloskey, was really instrumental in trying to come together and get the city put together that said that 200 units was going to be okay, because it wasn't okay. It was never going to be okay. But that limitation was a real political endeavor that, starting from scratch again is not something that we were hoping to do. One proposal that I had, and I talked to our city attorney about it before tonight, is, isn't there some benefit to sticking the county representatives and Lab Holdings into an actual mediation, to put some retired judicial officer between you two and try to work through these environments? And heck, if the city had to pick up the tab for the mediator, I'd probably support such an idea. But to bring you two together, because you're tripping up on 2 issues that you're going to have with the next contract as well. And if your RFP says revenue sharing, I don't know that that's necessarily going to be an apples to apples project. It depends on who applies. And if the completion bond, one of the things that troubled me is that the completion bond was as it was reported to me, because they were concerned that the Lab Holdings company wouldn't be able to finish the project. And if that's the case, then that's an RFP question. You got to make those decisions before you ever get selection on the RFP. If you don't think they can complete it, then that's not perhaps the entity you should go with. So it seems to me that this isn't beyond repair. Before you launch into litigation that the county's going to have to fund its defense for and potentially suffer a judgment because of, in a very high dollar case, and before Lab Holdings goes through the same endeavor of spending its money, why isn't there a benefit of trying to mediate this in a formal mediation process with a retired judicial officer that we could use as a sounding board to try to test these and try to work something out? Has that been explored?
Well, council member, all I can tell you is that we have received board direction and we have proceeded with the direction from our board and we have terminated the agreement. And that's the position of the county currently. I would like to say also that a few things have been said, and I want to make it very clear that in no way, shape, or form did the county change its position to be inconsistent with the RFP. Any such argument has been addressed in writing, and I have a series of letters here from the county to the lab team, which I would like to put into the record to support that, because again, we want to make it very clear that the county has been consistent in its position from the beginning of when Lab was chosen to be the primary developer pursuant to the RFP. So if that's possible.
You can tender it to the city clerk. That which is fine, and I don't mean to recreate facts here. I'm not attempting to do it, nor am I attempting to characterize them. But what I am trying to convey specifically is that we've got sweat equity in this deal, and I know you do as well.
That's
and
correct.
I'm certain that the applicant did as well. And I hate to see all of that equity, all of that effort be lost on a project that I think you now have a city that's very interested in having it there. Certainly, we as a city, and the residents should know, spent significant funds. I think it was a $500,000, is that correct? Half of which was coming back somehow. We were splitting it with the county. But we spent money on the EIR specifically for this project. Am I right?
That's correct, we have, and it is, the total cost is split between the city and the county. I believe that, excuse me, we may have a couple of invoices outstanding, which I'm sure the county will split with us, as has been the practice, and pay it promptly.
And what was the total amount the city spent? About $500,000?
I apologize, I don't remember the exact amount, but it was several $100,000 total for the
I thought it was
project.
250 split in two.
That's correct.
250 split?
So
That's
we
correct.
ours was 125.
All right, well, I don't want to overstate it. I just want to be accurate that we do have actual money invested, this taxpayer dollars in on the environmental impact report for this, which, you know, we have a vested, and that's hard to come by money, so we have a vested interest in trying to not lose it. I don't know who would come next. I don't know what the future RFP proposal applicants are going to look like. But unless they are a straight apples to apples comparison, which is tough to get, and it's free of litigation at that point, we're probably going to have to spend more dollars doing that again, or be asked to. And I'm not happy about that. And it seems to me, before all hope is abandoned, that I would encourage the county to accept our letter, and I would modify this letter to say that we would invite you to come participate in some type of mediated process to try to work out those differences. Because, as I get it, there's 2 deal points, unless I'm missing something. So anything else would be reiteration, and I want to do that. So
Thank you very much, Councilmember John Mark Jennings. Last but not least, Mayor Pro Tem Elaine Genoway.
Okay, well, I'm sure you know this is hugely disappointing to us. I appreciate your being here tonight to answer our questions, but and to know that yesterday was when the letter was sent is surprising. Now, our residents have, you know, it's a lost opportunity for them. We've invested, our residents have spent, and our city staff and our city council have spent over 2 years on this. And I guess when we've heard in the last couple of months of the questions about not being able to reach an agreement, it's why did it take so long to get to this point? So, but you're telling us that everything that is being asked now was in the original RFP?
That's correct.
Okay, all righty. Is there anyone else that the county has lined up to step into the shoes of the developer or to take on a project like this?
No, we have not spoken with any private sector firm about the project. That would be inappropriate.
And have you considered maybe of breaking it into different components? Because this project, Agora as it was, had a residential or / hotel component, and then also the retail and restaurant component. Have you maybe consider breaking it up into smaller projects that would have a cohesive feel, but maybe bringing in other developers?
Well, we haven't made a decision yet when to move forward with a new RFP process and what that RFP would include. Again, we would hope that the city will participate in that process and will have a say in that along with the county when it is put out. But no, those sorts of decisions have not been made.
Okay, well, I think it's safe to say that we are definitely interested in participating in that process. Again, we've had a huge investment of time in the hopes of our residents looking forward to that, and the lost opportunity here for our taxpayers and county taxpayers as well. But I concur with Councilman Jennings in that before getting tied up in potential litigation, I think it's worth everybody's time to sit down with a mediator and see if some sort of resolution can come of this before just sending a letter and walking away. Because if you get tied up in litigation, this is just gonna delay the project even longer. So I think it's worth the effort for everybody to be part of this and, go with the mediator and see if some resolution can be reached. So I would recommend that this letter that we send include that, and I think Councilman Jennings may have the wording for that.
Thank you.
But thank
Well,
you for being here, Mr. Mayor.
First, Mr. Mayor, I apologize for putting you on the spot, but I'm very disappointed, I'm very dismayed, because as all of my colleagues have mentioned, this project was very dear to all of us. We fought for this project since the beginning, since day one when we were elected. I recall myself, vividly, myself and Mayor Pro Tem Elaine Genoway with our, late Mayor Jerry McCloskey and my colleagues here, the two colleagues here. We had public hearings. This city council chambers were jam-packed with people talking about that project. And after over 2.5 years, I'm disappointed that my very good friend, Michelle Steele, the chairwoman of the Orange County Board of Supervisors, initially wrote the first letter. They sent it to me. I did not put it on the agenda for the record. I did not. It was sent to me directly. I resisted to put it on the agenda for my colleagues to even discuss it because it was basically concluding the same kind of decision on behalf of the County of Orange. We want to be a partner. We've been a partner. We enjoy working with the county, with all the county supervisors, but the potential negative ramification of the decision by the majority of the Orange County Board of Supervisors is great for all of us as elected officials in this city. This is the only place we got left. This is the only area, this is the only soft land that we have. This is the only, infill, if you may call it, in our beautiful, great city, well-manicured city, that we wanted to have a cozy development to give us a sense of downtown that we never had. Unlike Dana Point, unlike Laguna Beach, unlike a lot of other cities in Orange County, we never had anything. And all of us were so united, and we are still united, as you can clearly see, that we wanted to ask, request, beg the county that give this developer a chance. I do recognize that the size is not Majestic Realty, the #1 real estate company in America. I realize that. I've talked to our supervisor, Lisa Bartlett, in great extent, and I've expressed my personal feelings that, well, he's a small developer, he's not a big one. But then the response that I received was, well, the County of Orange has specific requirement. I get it, I understand that. But in the RFP process, when the request for proposals was initially issued, I know you put all these agreements, it's like a typical engineering project. You put these agreements, blank agreements, at the end of the RFP document. What I would have hoped, as my colleague council member John Mark Jennings mentioned, at the beginning, before the kickoff, before all of us to get online, on board, to advocate for the cause, to promote, to create support, he should have been given specific direction that, okay, anytime you're going to refi the loan, you're going to pay 10% of your profit to the County of Orange. All those things should have been stipulated in the body of the text of the request for proposal, so that any proposer would acknowledge that, oh, okay, well, I cannot meet those requirements, they're too much. So they would not be putting time, effort, energy, and money, and ultimately to bring all of us on board after 2.5 years that we have nothing to show for. I know the county is losing money. I get it. I understand that. We have a building, here that is not being utilized. So the County of Orange is not making money. I get it. But for us, it's a scar. The old courthouse is not a beautiful place to have next to our beautiful city hall with a beautiful library. Having said that, what can we do? I know Supervisor Lisa Bartlett called me. I was not aware of the letter of termination yesterday, which is news to me. And I mentioned to her that, tonight we're going to be discussing on the letter that we're gonna be sending back to the county to encourage mutual discussions to come up with some kind of ultimate resolution between the two parties, a private entity and a county government. Us, as you know, we don't have any legal interest, we don't have any economic interest, but ultimately, the successful implementation of the proposed action plan would be beneficial to the county because you guys own the land and you guys are going to get more benefits out of it than us as a municipal corporation. So having said all of it, not to repeat what my colleague said, what can we do? You mentioned the Orange County Board of Supervisors have made the final vote on this item, that no further discussion with the lab, correct?
Correct.
So then to go back to our expert litigator that happens to be sitting with us, how can we resurrect something out of the ashes?
I don't have a solution.
You're an attorney too, I know that. You're a real estate attorney, so.
I don't have a solution to satisfy what I think you're asking. We were given direction by our board. We provided a letter, which I've
we just got, I haven't even got it. I
Put
haven't
into the
seen the
record
letter.
back on August 24th, whereby the best and final lease was provided to Lab with an idea, with a statement that if it was not acceptable to Lab, our relationship would be terminated. That was followed up by a second letter from our county executive officer stating the same thing. And then the third letter, which was sent out yesterday by our council, formally terminating the option agreement. And I will say, all three of those letters were provided to your staff. We've taken, I believe, ample steps to provide notification to Lab. They were very well aware of the status of our negotiations. Their attorney was participating. We had our lawyers involved. We've followed up with correspondence, and pursuant to board direction, we have acted and terminated, and we did provide, as I said, those documents to your staff.
Was it a unanimous vote or 4-1?
It was a matter taken up in closed session. I can't address that.
Oh, I see, because it's a real estate matter.
That's correct.
Mr.
Okay,
Mayor?
your points are well taken. Two quick items. When I talked to Supervisor Lisa Bartlett this afternoon, we have two options available to us. I haven't talked about the options available to us with her. One option is, as my colleague mentioned, the County of Orange and this private developer would be presenting their case in front of a retired judge rather than those lengthy litigations that we as a city, quite frankly, cannot tolerate at this juncture. So that we see this thing still there and then it's going to be going on within the legal process. And God knows, 2 years from now, maybe we're going to have a resolution or maybe something's going to come out of it or maybe not. And then the party's going to get deeper into, lawsuits. We don't want to see that as a city. We don't feel that. Number one, if we can have an option there. And then the second one is, with regard to Supervisor Bartlett told me that if, which is a conditional statement, but most likely that's the way you're going to be moving forward with, the County of Orange would be issuing new RFPs. But are you going to issue new RFPs when you have potential litigation?
Well, as I indicated before, there's been no formal decision made as to when an RFP will be put out and what the terms of that will be. You're right. We have just terminated formally through council our legal agreement with Lab, and those decisions will be made at some point in the future.
So the issuance of an RFP has to be contingent upon having clearance on these potential legal issues, litigation issues. Otherwise, you as a county, why should you? She told me that we are very interested to move forward. Then I said, we need to have someone from this body. Then she explained to me that no one from the Orange County Board of Supervisors would be sitting on the selection committee because it's a real estate matter. No elected official from this body nor from the county would be present. It would be most likely yourself and some of your colleagues, and maybe the city manager from our city or the community development director to represent our city, because elected officials cannot be present, cannot make a decision, because ultimately we are going to be approving the decision by the selection committee, correct?
You will be involved in the approval of a
Correct.
future project as the entitling agency, yes.
Okay, so I summarize my discussions. If we are going to have this potential litigation, then the likelihood of this body, this city council, to see another project to come to this body would be, I see it in the distant future, that I'm not happy at all, and I'm pretty sure that my colleague's gonna echo the same thing.
Well, I'm not sure what litigation you're referring to. The county has no intention of initiating litigation against Lab.
Well,
And
if I may interject, I talked to Shaheen some time back, and it was like 2 months ago, and he said that the county's, I'm gonna ask the county to pay me back the expenses for their architectural and engineering, fees, because they were under the impression that they are moving forward with the project. Now that there is no project, so he was saying to me that I'm not advocating for Mr. Shaheen Siddiqui, nor I'm his spokesperson. Plus, I don't see him in the audience to ask him to come forward. But we want to be a good citizens here, to advocate for this great city, to advocate for the benefit of this city. That, what do we do next?
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Please.
Okay, please, thank you so much. So we have a letter, again, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a letter here, this is pretty much what we have, we can't tell the county to do. But my suggestion is this is what we should do proactively, is we need to change the letter a little bit. I do think that we should, what we should request out of the letter is make the point that we ask them to agendize it and reconsider continuing negotiations with Lab Holdings, and add in Mr. Jennings' comments, seconded by Ms. Genoway, about the offer that the city helps mediation. Okay, and that's what we should change the letter to, and that we approve that. If we can approve it proactively now, based on all of us looking at it. I do also am a little disappointed that they had that meeting in closed session. When the initial take-up of the Lab Holdings, we set up a delegation, the city of Laguna Niguel did. It was, a couple council members and members of staff, and even members of the community went up to the Board of Supervisors and all spoke, just like people have the 3 minutes. So the fact that it was in closed session, and the fact that whether they told us or not, I didn't receive specific notification, and I'm very disappointed by that, because we should have had the opportunity. So what I suggest, in addition to the letter that we do tonight, is we figure out a delegation, use staff and figure out who on this body, and let's go to a county supervisor meeting after the letter gets there, and let's go for a meeting, and let's go do our public hearing, public comments. Let's get a number of Laguna Niguel delegates to make the trip up to Santa Ana one Tuesday, early morning or late morning, and let's speak, and let's state what we're stating in the letter. I think that's what we can do right now. The rest is we can't really do. If someone has more ideas or better ideas to add to that, I'd welcome them. But that's what my suggestion is. We change this item to just change the letter and add the
Very good.
items talked.
Councilwoman Lori Davis.
Actually, those are my sentiments exactly. I can't tell you how frustrated as well as disappointed I am to hear that the termination letter came out, considering we weren't really asked, hey, how is what does the city council feel about this decision? What do the residents of this city feel about this decision? I feel like we were completely left out, and yet this project is in our backyard, and we've actually put money into this. So I really think that we've been kind of left out, and especially when it came to this decision. I'm not one to give up, and I truly believe that if we have an opportunity to speak to the supervisors so that they can actually hear our point of view, I think that hopefully we could make a difference here, because I'm not willing to stop fighting for this project. We've been needing a downtown for years. We had people on board. This is an exciting opportunity that will address the the teens, the adults, the seniors. It's a great project for this city. And again, if it decided to go into litigation, we're not going to see anything for years. I believe that we can hopefully come to an understanding. I like the fact that I think we should maybe revise the letter so that it can be sent out. And I would appreciate the supervisors having an opportunity to hear from us, as well as would give us perhaps the opportunity to let anyone in the public come and address the supervisors as well, so that they can hear, how important this project was to us. So hopefully that they would reconsider. I know that they, as I said, the county authorized that. Well, they can also make changes, and they can come back and say, you know what, we're going to take another look at this. Not everything's always perfect, and sometimes they don't always hear the entire story. I don't feel like our story or our words were heard. So I think that us also going into some type of mediation would be a great opportunity. I want them to realize that we want this project. We are willing to do pretty much anything we can to make this happen. And so I think exactly what really everyone else has said here. But I don't think that we should give up on this. We're not going to.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Elaine Genoway.
Yeah, no, I think it's in everyone's best interest, the residents of our city, the residents of our county, that we don't give up. And it's just, need to be realistic and look at the time that will be lost if this gets tied up in litigation. And that time would be much better spent during mediation and coming to some resolution. So that is really something that we need to work towards. And I think that the Board of Supervisors need to be hearing from us, because we realize, we are not the landowners. We have a difficult position, and that we have to, hold back on this. But now is the time that I guess maybe they didn't realize how important this was to the residents of our city. But I think our residents will be very, very disappointed when they hear this, and we need to do everything we can to bring this to resolution. And I would concur with Councilman Jennings in having the mediation aspect added to the letter, as well as the points that Councilman Slusowitz had made.
Councilmember John Mark Jennings.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the citizens of Laguna Niguel, you need to know that your city council has been fighting for this. We've been advocating for it. We've been honing it in a way that was, in our minds, the best for you. We are inordinately disappointed with this decision. I regret that it is happening this way, and I don't think that you've had a loud enough voice at the county level in these negotiations. Nothing is ever dead. Just because rejection letters go out, I see it frequently. Contracts get severed, and the parties still make decisions to come back. Very often, mediation happens out in the middle of litigation. So there's nothing stopping these parties from re-engaging in this. A mediation is a deliberate act. It is the intent to try to work something out. It's not a judge deciding. It's not like an arbitration or a trial. It's two parties coming together voluntarily trying to work something out. And that's what I'm encouraging these people to do. Our elected officials at the county level still report to we the people, and we the people of Laguna Niguel have been inordinately clear about what we want. We the people of Laguna Niguel also would look to the developer and say, you need to live up to whatever it was you agreed to. Let's make this work. And if there's anything that we can do to bring it together, I am duty bound to try to work that out, because we have skin in this game. We've invested money into the project, and we have political efforts and economic efforts all coming to bear at the same time. And I want to make sure that the county electeds hear us on that our residents hear us on that, and if anybody in the press wants to report it, that's the way it should come out. I completely concur that the letter needs to go out. It should be revised. I think we need to add in language that deals with the termination and the timing of that, because that isn't referenced in here. But we could do that. We could add the mediation and the other points that have been made. And I'm happy to work with the city attorney if need be. I'm sure he can handle it, but I'm happy to work with him if need be to finalize the letter. I don't recommend that we hold the letter until we meet again. I think we need to go ahead and authorize it in that form and get it out as soon as possible.
Very good. So do I have a motion with those specific amendment to the letter, Mr.
So moved.
Terry Dixon? Very good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion is approved unanimously. Very good. Now on to other business and council reports. I start from Council Member John Mark Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to those of you who are here and watching on TV who have made it through the rest of our evening tonight. I have a special thank you to my council colleagues. We didn't all adopt the color pink on accident. I was very glad that they joined along. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Tonight, I'm wearing pink in honor of my sister Joy Jennings, who is currently undergoing cancer treatments in Texas with all the craziness of chemotherapy and radiation and surgeries and things, and she remains forever in my heart at the moment, and that's got to be tough. It's also in memory of my wife Kelly's grandmother and my grandmother Eva, who both suffered from breast cancer, and really the millions of women who go through this day after day. It's a very big struggle. I'm glad that we, especially as men, can come together and support the women in our lives that we love that go through this, and it's a big deal. So thank you very much to my council colleagues who also did that, and I appreciate it. And my comments tonight are in memory of those people. I can't leave the dais tonight without bringing up something that I think is just, I know it's in all of our hearts and we're not really sure what to do about it. We lost so many friends and people in the Las Vegas shootings that unspeakable tragedy will, I think, forever be sort of marred in our minds. We also this week had the shootings in Aliso Viejo, which they affected greatly our very good friends in Laguna Niguel and our sister city. And I want to borrow some thoughts, and they're not original to me. They're borrowed from a friend and pastor of mine. But one of the comments lately has been that our thoughts and prayers are with you, and we've read it a lot. And I got to say it couldn't be more true. But another thought lately has been that, well, maybe our thoughts and prayers aren't good enough. That's just something that we say, and that really something has to change to stop it. But I don't want to run past the idea of thoughts and prayers. They're both very intentional acts. We're called upon to think about things that are better than this. We're called to think about things that are memorable, that are happy, that are good, that are worthy and just. And our affirmative act of thinking that way, collectively as a society, recast the focus away from these unspeakable evils and towards the reason that we sit here. To be the shining light, to be something better than that as a society. And we as electeds are specifically called to challenge the people that we represent to be better than that, to stand up for something more than that. And when we see it, it's our job. It needs to start with us, and it should start tonight and forevermore. And then we think about our prayers. And if we're going to tell somebody we're going to do that, then that's an affirmative act that we need to do. Because for every one of those, I think that there's a real connection, a real meaning behind praying for them. So with our thoughts and prayers, I give those tonight to the people in Las Vegas affected by that. I give those to the people who were affected by the unspeakable horrors of the hurricanes in the past 2 months, and to the people and our friends in our sister city of Aliso Viejo. You have our specific thoughts and prayers tonight. And with that, I thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for your thoughtful comments. Councilmember Jerry Schlusowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick comment. It's unfortunate. I was, on Friday, I just want my colleagues to know, trying to actually set a meeting regarding what's on the agenda after this meeting, and to speak personally and heartfully with all of you. There was a miscommunication. I didn't realize until almost 3 o'clock today that I wasn't going to be able to present, anything to talk to you guys in a heartful manner. But it's unfortunate, but that's how it is. I just wanted to point that out if you didn't know. I know that Mr. Erlinson was aware of it from Friday, and I know Mr. Minigar was aware of it over the weekend. So thank you very much.
Councilmember Laurie Davies.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to just kind of piggyback in regards to wearing pink tonight. Again, there are a lot of people out there a lot of women suffering from breast cancer, and I want to dedicate this night to a friend of mine who just had a double mastectomy, and she will be starting chemo in a week. So I know she's got a strong battle ahead of her, but again, thoughts and prayers. If you're going to say you're going to do that, you better make sure you do it, and that's something that I found is don't wait till you get home, say that prayer right then and there. I have some good news from Sacramento. I know that may be a surprise, but SB 649 actually was vetoed by the governor, which was the small cells bill. That would have really affected our city, all the cities around here in regards to costs and losing local control, as well as even the way that our city looks. So I was surprised, but I really believe that our letters made a difference. A lot of the cities sent letters to opposition to the governor, and I think he heard us. So I thank you, Governor Brown, for that. I would have liked to see a lot more vetoed, but I'll take that one. You know, got to enjoy what you've got there. Also, let you know that we have a drug overdose memorial dedication on October 23rd at 4 p.m. at the Crown Valley Park North parking lot near the softball field. I'd like to special thank you to Allison and your staff for helping us put that on, and hopefully all the council can attend, and public is invited as well to attend. And then I'll let Councilmember Genoway talk about the military golf tournament, but it was a great event yesterday. And the Alzheimer's Walk, once again, they did a fantastic job. There's a lot of work that goes into that, and I also was very happy. A friend of mine has a booth there, and it's Seniors for Seniors. It's senior dogs that they match up with seniors, and there was a dog we put in there, Lucky, and Lucky was lucky that day, and he got adopted. So if anyone was over there, Lucky's got a family of 4 now taking care of him. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem Elaine Genoway.
Okay, well, a couple of weeks ago, I attended, ACCOC had an economic development symposium, and it was very interesting in taking a look at the economic growth of our cities and our region and what we need to be thinking about for the future, and really creating these employment hubs, because our future generation wants to be working where they live. So, and then that also then reduces the need for all of the travel and, you know, cars on the road. But that's something that I'll be talking more about with our ad hoc economic development committee to see how does that take a role in our city. Thank you very much to Director Giglio and our Parks and Rec Department, and Director Abazadeh and Mr. Mazboudi, as well as Phil Robinson from Emergency Preparedness. They all made presentations at the last Junior Civic Workshop, and our middle school students learned more about what the city departments do. Yesterday was the Laguna Niguel Military Support Committee Fairways to Freedom Golf Tournament. So thank you to all the businesses that provided prizes and supported it. Thank you to all the golfers and all the non-golfers who sponsored military members to play. But also we have a fantastic military support committee who has been working all year, the committee members and their family members. This is the big fundraiser for our military support committee, and the support that we can provide to our adopted Marines, sailors, and helicopter unit and their families. So piggybacking on something that Councilman Jennings had said, providing opportunities for everyone to make a commitment. We should all make a commitment and a conscious effort to create something better or to help someone who is in need. And as many of you know, I've been talking about human trafficking for quite a while now. And our last human trafficking town hall that we had several weeks ago was the largest one that our Orange County Human Trafficking Task Force has ever seen. We had 300 attendees there. And so this Thursday here at City Hall at 7 p.m., we'll be having a human trafficking workshop. And the workshop is where people come to learn about where they can volunteer if they would like to work on this effort, either work with the victims to help them become survivors, or to work with the nonprofits that support them. So there will be representatives from the Orangewood Foundation, from Crittenton, from Community Services Programs, and from the Orange County Human Trafficking Task Force to let our residents know about the different volunteer opportunities. There's all the way from being a mentor to a victim to doing fundraising, or even, you know, scout troops can make up movie night baskets for the victims who are minors who are living in the Crittenton home. So there's many different opportunities. But I invite everyone to come this Thursday, the 19th at 7 p.m. in the community room. And then also, I want to give credit to a number of our homeowners and residents here in the city. You know, the fabric of our community and the principles our country was based on are residents working together with their government. And tonight we had stellar examples with the Somerset Homeowners Association and also with the Lake Park residents. They've all worked together to provide input to the city that is so valuable. And that's what we, as the council members, are here to listen to, and we value that input. But if you don't provide it to us, we don't know what you're thinking. So, and also, you know, working with us. So there's many ways to find out what is going on in the city, but the best way is to be connected and to get the emails from the city, so you see what's on our agenda, so you see what we're going to be talking about, so you don't all of a sudden hear about a parking lot from your neighbor, but the city has been talking about it either through the senior committee or the city council for quite a few months. So if anyone is not already receiving the emails from the city, you go to the city website, cityoflagunaniguel.org. On the right-hand side is a Notify Me button. Click that, and you can sign up to receive agendas for every single meeting we have. But I really suggest the city council meetings. And then also you can receive the agendas for the Traffic Commission, for the Senior Committee, for investment banking and audit, anything that's going on in the city, you can receive notifications and then come to the meetings, and that's how you stay informed. But if anyone's not signed up for that, I really encourage you to do so. So then you get the agenda packets the same time we do as the council on Fridays if you're signed up. So I commend the residents who are participating and working in partnership with their city government, and also encourage more people to do so, because we value your input and we want to hear what you have to say. So, and also hope to see many of you at our dedication of the memorial tree on Monday at 4 p.m. at Crown Valley Park. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. I wanted to keep it brief to the point, not to repeat what my colleagues mentioned. On Wednesday, October the 4th, along with my City Council colleague Laurie Davies and our Police Chief Barr, we participated in National Walk to School Day. It was an enjoyable experience. That was my first time. Thank you to Chief Barr and also the Orange County Sheriff Department and those Laguna Niguel residents and parents that volunteered to organize it and to make it a great success, from walking with all the school kids from Chick-fil-A all the way to Marian Bergeson Elementary School. On Thursday, October the 5th, I attended Southern California Association of Governments Transportation Committee meeting in the morning in downtown, and then for lunchtime, we had the great, rare opportunity to have luncheon with Governor Jerry Brown, and when he was speaking to us on one-on-one basis, he was, the reason that he came to Los Angeles to advocate for his water initiative, which is very good for Southern California. As we all know, we need water, and the future of water supply would be hinging upon the construction of those two tunnels in Central California, in the Delta area. And he got a lot of support from all the elected regional council members that I happen to be one of those, regardless of the party line. So the meeting that we had, the luncheon, was one of those rare opportunities that, regardless of the party line, all of us from Orange County, my colleagues that were representing different cities and different districts, we agreed with the governor that we do need to promote, push, advocate for that. And the good news was that right in the afternoon, the governor went to the building next door, which is MWD's headquarters, and by a vote of 68%, it was passed by the board members of the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. So this is pretty good for all of us. I may not agree with the governor on every item, every issue, every subject. Sometimes I argue technically to death, but on this one, I think it worked out pretty well. On Friday, October the 6th, I attended the Laguna Niguel Chamber of Commerce's Governmental Affairs meeting at the City Hall with my colleague, Mayor Pro Tem Elaine Genoway, and Councilmember John Mark Jennings, supporting the military support group. And in that evening with my colleague, not Congressman, you're getting promotion, Councilmember John Mark Jennings, I attended the 25th anniversary of Aliso Niguel High School, which was a great opportunity to be there. Then on Thursday, October 12th, I attended the TCA board meeting in Irvine, and I'm extremely honored and humbled to be nominated by the 15 board member of TCA to be selected and to be elected as the next vice chair of the Transportation Corridor Agency at a time that it is going to be the most controversial organization, that people of San Clemente are opposing the extension of the 241 toll road, and by getting a unanimous vote from everyone, including all those cities that may potentially be affected by the potential expansion of the toll road, that we are taking our leadership from this city on a regional basis within the entire county of Orange. So with that said, it would be a great opportunity for me to exercise, to utilize my technical expertise to be the new vice chair, and then it's an automatic rollover once my very good friend, the current mayor of Laguna Hills, would be stepping down. Then I'll be the chairman of the Transportation Corridor Agency within the next couple of months. On Sunday, October 15th, along with Capo Unified School District President Martha McNicholas, I attended the kickoff reception of the Citizen Foundation in the city of Laguna Niguel. The purpose of this foundation is to help out those kids with special needs. They are starting from Dana Hills High School, and then they are going to be moving to Aliso Niguel, and then I met people from San Clemente and other cities that they wanted to have the same program to be in place. So with that, I keep it short to the point, and I turn the podium to our Police Chief, Matthew Barr, for any comments. Our Interim Assistant City Manager, Ms. Debbie Bell. Our Interim City Manager, Mr. Steve Erlinson. Our esteemed City Attorney, Mr. Terry Dixon. Our Community Engagement Manager, Ms. North.
The city, in conjunction with the County of Orange, will be conducting their annual test of the county's mass notification system, Alert OC. So the purpose of the test is to test Alert OC's capability to deliver emergency notifications to the public in the event of a disaster. So starting tomorrow morning at 10:30, residents who are registered with Alert OC will receive the notifications, and those that are not registered, we ask that they sign up with Alert OC at www.alertoc.com. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Our Engineering Services Manager, Mr.
Nothing
Ms.
tonight,
Bodie.
sir.
Our esteemed City Clerk, Ms. Gomez.
Thank you for that, Mayor, and congratulations on your appointment. That's a very good position for you. You're going to do very well, and thank you. I know you'll represent our city well. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Parks and Rec Director, Ms. Giglio.
Thank you,
You
Mayor.
always have something for us. And always smiling.
That's why I said something, so she
Thank you. Just a reminder, Haunted Trails Carnival starts next week, Thursday, October 26th through Saturday, October 28th. People can purchase pre-sale tickets for $13 per person at the park next week, and they're going to be $15 at the door for tickets. This event is recommended for ages 8 and up, And if you're too scared or a little too young to enjoy haunted trails, we have a behind-the-scenes tour this year for $10 on Saturday, October 28th from 4:30 to 5:30. So some of our younger, our monsters will not jump out. It's not dark. It's a little bit more friendly setting for them. More details about haunted trails and all of our Parks and Rec events are on the city website. And also our spray ground is going to be closing on October 29th for the winter. So get out and enjoy it before then. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And last but not least, our Community Development Director, Ms. Roseberry. And, our Director of Public Works, I didn't see him. That means it's getting too late. It's 9:30 at night. Very good, thank you. Well, at this time, I would like to have our City Attorney Dixon read us into closed session, please.
Got to do something about that. Mayor Minigar, members of the council, we do have a closed session tonight. Conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 of subdivision D of section 54956.9 of the Government Code, which is contained in the Brown Act. This is a particular matter for which I've reclused myself because of a conflict of interest, and we have here tonight, representing the city, Mr. Stephen McEwen of the law firm of Burke, Williams and Sorensen. There's an additional statement that I'm required to read relative to the proposed closed session. We are requesting a recess into closed session under the Government Code Brown Act provision I just cited, based on, among other things, exposure to litigation from Councilmember Slusowicz that has become known during recent discussions regarding a possible resolution to employee complaints in lieu of investigation authorized on September 5th. The litigation exposure relates to events that led to the investigation. I don't believe there'll be any report out tonight. And with that, I would ask that the council go into a closed session.
And for clarification, Mr. City Attorney, it would be just 4 of us and the city's legal counsel,
That's
correct?
my understanding. It would not include Councilmember Slusowicz.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. The meeting is adjourned to the closed session.